Hi everyone, welcome to our channel agile.com. Regularly, my plan is bi-weekly. We are going to present you with a little stand-up right here from this studio, and we're gonna answer questions about Agile and Lean Transformation. Currently, we are focused on the sector of small and medium enterprises, SMEs, in Hungary, but we also have international clients and we have expertise in international environments as well. Of course, we're open to suggestions. So anytime if you have a question or if a subject, even later on Agile, you can write us an email and give us the questions. We're gonna answer them live. And of course, you're welcome to chat with us during the live event. All right, last week we got two very interesting questions. One is the difference or connection between the product owner and portfolio management. And the second is how deep should I dive as an owner of an enterprise into the backlog or into the planning levels in order to control but not to interfere too much with the processes and the product development. So these will be the two questions that we will discuss, not too much going into the details, but at least a couple of practical notions. So I'd like to start with the first one, with the connection between the product owner and portfolio manager. Okay, what is a portfolio? So there are stuffs in the company. That's not really a portfolio. A portfolio is a group of projects, products, or services that are members of a closed ecosystem where the synergy of the different products or services actually come together, and as a portfolio they produce something more than the individual projects or services would be. This more can be less risk, more clients, more profit, whatever that interests your organization or company. So that's a portfolio. Now, a product owner is basically a portfolio manager depending on how complex the product is that the portfolio manager or the product owner has to manage. So a product owner is responsible for a products or services market performance and for its evolution, for the products or services evolution. If you look at it this way, any product or service that the product owner has consists of a number of standalone, independent sub-products or sub-services or sub-value propositions. On the atomic level, user stories. Every user story must have a value proposition in its own. And the product or service that the product owner is responsible for its market performance and its evolution, consists of these atomic level of value propositions. So basically it's a portfolio. Now, when you manage a portfolio, you have to be aware that you must have different strategies for different items. And this is the same with the classic portfolio manager and the product owner. Just because something comes from the classic management world, it doesn't mean that it should not or would not fit with the product owner's needs or would not serve a product owner well. So one of these artifacts that I really love to use when I'm teaching product owners or when I'm acting as a product owner is the classical BCG matrix, the Boston Consulting Group's matrix, which says that any service or product can either be a question mark, we don't know what's happening with it yet, it's too fresh, a shining star, it's in a growing phase, a cash cow, or a dead dog, something that you should get rid of because time has passed over it. Now, this seems to be a very universal truth about products or services. And as a portfolio manager or as a product owner, when I look at my services or products this way, I have to realize, all right, some of my services within the product, if I'm a product owner, are cash cows, and some are shining stars, and some are dead dogs, for example. Now what happens is, well, as a product owner, when I'm responsible for my products or services market performance and evolution, I really have to be aware of where my sub-services stand. The same stuff with a classical portfolio manager. Just one level of abstraction lower. But the mechanism is pretty much the same. And there is one more similarity. As a product owner, I'm entitled to make certain decisions as almost as close as an owner. That's my entitlement. That is why I'm a product owner, not a product manager. That is why I'm a product owner, not a business analyst. Okay? So that I can actually decide certain things regarding the service or product that I'm responsible for. For example, if I see that a sub-service is a dead dog, I can take it out from the service. That's something that is not necessarily needed anymore in my portfolio of value propositions that I'm giving to the market as a product owner. All right, so this means that as a product owner, if I am aware of where my sub-services or sub-products stand in this matrix, I have to decide and I have to fit my strategy according to my portfolio's dividends amongst these quadrants. I can't have or shouldn't have the same strategy for a shining star service that I just started and my users are just getting familiar with, and they like it and they buy it and they use it. The same strategy does not apply for a cash cow, for example, or something that is still in its infancy. It's a question tag, it's a question mark, and I have to validate its product market fit. And this is true sprint by sprint, release by release, when I achieve, or when the team achieves, another service or another feature that I can add as an evolution to the product, or I can take it out from the product that is also part of the evolution. So it is very important to understand that actually taking out something from a product is sometimes at least as valuable, if not more, than adding something to the product. All right, so basically a portfolio is items, services, products that the synergy is creating more value than the individuals. Therefore, I have to put an eye on them or keep an eye on them and manage them. I can't have just one strategy that fits all, regardless if I'm a product owner or a product manager. So I have to analyze which services or products belong to which phase within the BCG matrix, for example. And I have to adjust my strategy and tactical decisions according to what I see in this from this analysis. I do this as a product owner because as a product owner, I am responsible for what happens with the product's market performance and its evolution. Okay, that is 1.0. If you have questions about this later on, of course, we're ready either to answer them directly or we bring it to the next session, to our next live session. All right, let's wait just a minute. If anybody may have a question about this idea of what the similarities, or at least one similarity, is between a product owner and a classic portfolio manager. And then we will go on to the next question. Oh. Okay. So the next question, well, it's harder than the first one. So let's say I'm the owner of an SME, a small medium enterprise. And the question is, how deep should I dive, or how deep should I interfere in a product's development? And the question is, well, it really depends. If you are big enough to have a product owner of your own, then you should not interfere with the planning events. You should not deep dive into the backlog, and you should not meddle with the planning levels. But you really should have a very strong collaboration with your product owner. Of course, the product owner has your trust. The product owner is responsible for the economics of that product that he's handling. And transparency within an agile, not just mindset, organization, within an agile operation, is an absolute must. If there is enough transparency and there is a very tight feedback cycle, it's called sprints or iterations, I don't mind, whatever, there is difference, but okay, then there should not be a need for me as an owner to dive deep into what happens in the backlog or what happens in the levels of planning. When there is a lack of transparency and I'm an owner of an SME, then the risk is high if something goes astray. Therefore, I will interfere. Therefore, I will dive deep. But then, why do I have a product owner next to me? If I have a product owner, I should have a scrum master as well. Or at least someone who is responsible for delivering and living and using transparency within the organization. So, the key question is, what is shown and what can be seen regarding how a product or project evolves? And if that is satisfactory for me as an owner, I have absolutely no urge to dive deep into the backlog or to meddle with the planning levels. Of course, this doesn't mean that me as an owner, I should not have ideas. This doesn't mean that me as an owner, I should not discuss frequently with the product owner in order to achieve the best result, or to question him or her, or to try to understand what's happening, where the evolution goes. Of course, that's my responsibility as an owner. But managing something and being curious and understanding something, empowering someone, and using transparency and a tight feedback cycle in order to free ourselves from micromanagement, that is something that me as an owner of an SME, I can decide upon. And it really depends on me as an owner how the people who are living and working and collaborating in my enterprise actually behaving or use these elements. So the other end of the spectrum is a product is an owner who is control freak. If you are control freak, no methodology, no transparency, or no advisor or consultant will persuade you to behave otherwise. But being control freak is not an issue of size of the organization. I have seen countless control freak or laissez-faire leaders in big international companies, telcos and finance and pharmaceuticals, and of course the same happens with SMEs. It really depends on the person. Now, if you're an owner and you're working in an SME environment, one of the major type of waste that can cripple your organization is cost of waiting, cost of delay, cost of waiting. Cost of waiting typically happens when me as an owner, I don't really empower my product owner to make decisions on our behalf, and the organization, the product owner, the team, always waits for me as an owner to decide on something. The question is, if there is a proper transparency within the organization and the Scrum Master or someone in finance that can bring me a number in dollars or euros, whatever, in currency, what it costs to my organization that people are waiting for my decision. If that cost does not bother me, well, by all means, go ahead. But if that cost bothers you, please consider empowering the team more. But empowerment in itself is not necessarily the solution. Bring with it a high level of transparency and a very tight feedback loop, sprints or close it or short iterations, not more than 2 weeks, in order to achieve a level of trust naturally. And you don't have to give credit, it can be seen, it can be touched, it can be tested. That is validated knowledge regarding what happens with your product or services in your organization. So that would be my first advice to any SME owner or program manager. The question is, how deep should they dive regarding the backlog or the levels of planning?